Welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie, that's me, and Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl. And industry legend. Good, thank you, sir. It's actually our first international episode too. I'm filming here from Keratin Beach, Canggu, Bali. And industry legend Nigel Morris. G'day, Nige.
G'day, fellas. Thanks for having me on. I kind of jammied the door open and said, let me come in there and talk crap with you. So here we are.
Well, there wasn't much resistance, though. I got that phone call from you, Nige, and I'm like, "Whoa, that sounds good. Come on in."
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing, mate. You've got better hardware than we do.
I'm under the house, so it's all even. I think he's sitting here in an exotic overseas location, so he's making me feel like we've both done the wrong thing, Karl.
I sacrificed my usual microphone for a $10 special, just so I could get under the 7 kilos carry on. So it's great to go ahead. There's lots that's been going on. I've received a lot of emails and phone calls saying, are you guys still alive? Are you going to do this? So I appreciate all those calls. We just took a couple of months over that period, and there's been a lot going on. So I thought we'd jump into the new year and some of the key issues without dancing around too much. Nige, what is NETCC? Can you...
Yeah. I can try and explain it, and it's kind of simple but complicated. So I'll do my very best. In simple terms, the NETCC program is the replacement. It's the new version of the Approved Solar Retailer program, the ASR program, right? So the ASR has been superseded by the NETCC. Now, what's kind of interesting about this is that, as everyone probably knows, the ASR program was created and run by the Clean Energy Council. The NETCC program, interestingly, was actually, it took 7 years since COAG first sort of said, look, maybe we should rethink how the ASR is running. We need to take account of new technologies, batteries and stuff like that. So it needs to be broader, hence the new name, the new energy technology.
It also copped a lot of criticism online from installers and solar companies.
It did. And indeed, that was part of what prompted COAG to have a good hard look at it. So COAG had a good hard look at it. That was kind of where most of the complaints landed. That went to a body called the Behind the Meter Working Group. That's where COAG sent it and said, look, can you guys work out what the best thing is to do with the ASR program? Over the last 7 years, a lot of input, lots of, I went to one of the very first sessions about it, lots and lots of input. And in the end, what ended up happened was the Behind the Meter Working Group, prompted by COAG, created a new council called the NETCC Council. And that council is made up of a number of people from a number of bodies. It's actually the replacement for the code review panel that sat behind the ASR, which I was on for quite a long time. And that panel was made up of, consumer advocates and industry advocates and a whole bunch of other people. And that's reformed into the council. And so the council then went out and sought companies who would be interested in running the ASR program in its new form, the NETCC. And at the end of the day, the Clean Energy Council came forward and said, we'd like to do this, and they got the gong. So the NETCC is still operated by the CEC, and they were the
incumbents as well. So they've been administering this for years.
Correct.
There was all criticism that the CEC is doing this terribly and everything else. NETCC comes in, and the CEC is administering it.
That's right. So the council.
Were there any other takers? Any other bidders? Anyone else want to have a crack?
That I don't know, because I haven't been involved with the ASR panel for a while. I was sort of involved in the transition over, but haven't been involved in that. But, rightly or wrongly, logically think about it, right? They created the ASR program. They ran the ASR program for years, and so it's their program. So no one knows it better than they do. And so rightly or wrongly, they've been appointed. However, this new panel is much wider, much broader, and the theory there and the thinking there is that the new council will give them a broader sort of gambit, if you like, and they'll continue to run the program in its new form. Now, what has been really confusing to me, and I actually rang and spoke to a number of people really deeply involved right at the pointy end of the NETCC, and because I was a bit confused by this, and this is what I wanted brought out. I said, is it the CER? Because the CER currently has the accreditation program open for new participants to bid in to run the program, like the CC used to do, but it is currently open, and the product listing is currently also open, and both of those have been lodged by the CER. So in my head, I was sort of going, so where does the CER fit in this? And indeed, the CER has talked a lot about the NETCC program. They're involved a lot, but they sort of stepped aside and let the council operate it. And I said, why? Why is that different to accreditation and product listing? And the simple answer is because what the CER said is, listen, the ACCC signed off on the ASR program. So that's a different department. So the ACCC, having signed off and said the ASR program's fine and the NETCC program is fine, it falls under the jurisdiction of the ACCC rather than the CER. So they've kind of just gone,
but
okay, that's under control.
Ultimately, the CER has a sheriff's badge, though, that was given back to them. They do. And you would think that if there's any viable program that's doing the right thing, that the ACCC is going to end up rubber stamping that.
That's right. And it's really convoluted and complicated because all these parties, all these government departments talk to each other and have cross responsibilities and overlapping responsibilities sometimes as well. But, you know, at the end of the day, the critical part of it is the NETCC is governed, if you like, by the NETCC Council. And you can look up on the website who the council's made up of. Accreditation is currently open. So if you want to run the accreditation program, now's your chance. Jump in, put your bid in. If you want to run product listing program, now's your chance. Jump in, get your application into the CER.
I think that's a little bit more competitive, though. I know the Smart Energy Council and others are pushing harder to get the products accreditation.
Yep.
Yeah. So the ASR, do you think there's similar competition?
I think there is, but it is a much trickier program to manage because you have to get ACCC approval of everything. It is very much it's. You know, the interesting thing, having been a little bit on the inside, is, you know, you take away people's ability to be an installer if you take away their accreditation, and likewise, you take away people's ability to sell product if you take them off the product list. But it's pretty standard stuff, right? It's pretty black and white. You're either a good product, you've got the right documentation, you're in, and you're a good installer, and you meet the requirements, and you're in, and you don't do anything wrong, you're not being booted out. With the ASR program, the trick is that it's mandatory in some territories, of course, as many people don't like, and also that it takes away your ability to trade as a consequence. So it has a lot more. There's been more legal stoushes around the ASR, and I predict the NETCC than there ever was around accreditation and product listing.
If they're doing their job right, that's actually a good thing.
Yep.
Using that rationale, it's going to knock out some of the players that are doing the wrong thing, and that's a good thing for the industry. What do you reckon, Karl?
Thanks, Lee. I think it's changed as good as a holiday, and time will tell to see whether it's actually going to be any better or any worse than what's already there. Certainly, the previous scheme wasn't particularly popular, but certainly in Victoria, where it's mandatory, I think that standard of sales companies and installers is higher in Victoria than other states. So let's see how they go.
Absolutely.
I just want to throw it in, just it's worth mentioning, the CEC don't have perpetual rights to run the NETCC. They've been, I don't know, I'd have to look on the website to see how long their term is. But of course, that term comes to an end. It's watched by the council, and someone else may, at some point in the future, come along and go, I can do this better, and throw in a bid, and someone else will take over running the program.
And it's a perfect segue into the next topic I'd like to go into. In the last week, Gavin Beattie, formerly of Shine-Tech Solar, Shine-Tech Technologies, or whatever they were called, went to court and was convicted of fraudulently creating around a dozen sites worth of STCs. And the punishment was repaying the 50-odd grand that represented, as well as, I think, 300 hours of community service. What's your take on it, guys?
It's a pretty good rate. So 50 grand divided by 300 hours is $166 bucks an hour, and that's pretty good. I pick up rubbish on the side of the road for 160 bucks an hour, no problem. So that's my thoughts.
Well, I think, Karl, you stayed at my place this week as you were staying in WA, and we're finding out that there were waiters in Northbridge on up to $50 an hour. All of a sudden, waiting tables is looking pretty good too.
Yeah, look, he's got to pay back the money. At the end of the day, I think that whilst the judge thought that it was setting an example, I think that we didn't set a very good example at all, and someone would have actually had to have gone to a real amount of effort in order to do that. They needed to find panel serial numbers and a whole heap of information to get that 50 grand. It's not like it was an accident. So I'm disappointed that the penalty was as lenient as it was.
You need to look at it in context that Shine Tech was wound up something like a couple of years ago, and this is a historic thing. So it's because of operations like this that we have the requirements for installers to take photos of themselves on site and a number of other controls to make sure the person who is signing off on the system is actually there and that the install actually exists. So this is going back a few years.
Yeah, thanks a lot on behalf of every other installer in Australia. Thanks a fucking lot, mate. It's guys who, like you, who just have clearly, blatantly rorted the system that create the arduous rules that everyone else has to abide by, even though they're doing the right thing. Nice work, mate. Assuming you were found guilty and you actually did the wrong thing. I don't know. I wasn't involved, but this is not the first case, and it won't be the last of someone trying to dupe consumers or the government out of money. There are enforceable undertakings. There's pages and pages of enforceable undertakings on the Clean Energy Regulator website of people either knowingly or unwittingly doing the wrong thing. After Angus Taylor's review a couple of years ago, which prompted much of this change that we're now seeing around the ASR program, the NETCC program, the accreditation of product, it was Angus Taylor's review that prompted a lot of this, and the perpetual bad behaviour that we get from a tiny, tiny number of players in the industry. And if it wasn't for all those, I'm trying to be careful about my wording, but if it wasn't for
you're not on great solar business, Nigel. You can say what you like.
It's one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch, which is a real tragedy because it just makes more work, more admin, more hoops to jump through for everybody. And that's really the tragedy of all of this. Who knows what he's gone through or why he wanted the money, who knows what his backstory is. I always try to give people the credit, the benefit of the doubt, but by goodness, this is exactly the kind of thing that the CER loves doing. And there are some ex-feds who are in the investigations team in there who are all about this stuff. And we've seen investigation after investigation, particularly over the last year or two, of them getting really tough. So, the CER, when it's all said and done, and this is why I want to raise the issue about the NETCC and who's in control and everything else, the CER is taking an umbrella approach to all of this, and they really want to prosecute.
I have nothing to add there. Well put. But onwards and upwards. And I guess we'll see Gavin on the side of a freeway picking up bottles near you.
All right. Perfect segue. While we're on shit topics, it doesn't seem that we're bringing any good news yet.
It's been a good start to the year. I'll throw that in.
Not if you're in Queensland, though, Nige. Before we jump into the good, if you're in Queensland and you're installing 10 kVA or more on a site, you've got to install these bloody ancient GSD devices. What's going on?
Yes, the stupidest thing. I've ranted about this numerous times. It's an antiquated, glorified ripple control unit using DRM that the DNSPs up there thought they knew better than South Australia and better than WA and better than trials have been going on down in Victoria, where they're going, hang on, we can dynamically control solar if we need to. We don't always need to. In fact, having solar actually benefits the network and benefits consumers and helps lower prices a whole lot of times. So, dynamic control allows you to get the solar out there when it's benefiting the network. And most inverter manufacturers, the good ones at least, have all got dynamic export control capabilities and are chomping at the bit. In fact, they've even launched a lobby campaign to try and allow them to use this fantastic technology that they've got through dynamic export control in Queensland instead of this stupid bloody 1950s device that, you know, the DNSP's dragged out of the network. It's a stupid, boring, old-fashioned idea that should never have got up. I hope the campaign wins to let them move to dynamic export control. But everything I'm hearing on the grapevine is that, you know, they're not winning so far. And
have they not been paying attention to what's going on in South Australia, WA, as you said, and some of the other networks? Are they not paying attention? Is this some engineer who's been in the job since the 1970s trying to implement something? Because it's absolute bullshit. The technology is there, it's proven in other states, and yet we have this antiquated device. It's like
throwing a knife
for everyone.
It's just a knife switch on solar, which is just ridiculous.
No opinion one way or another from me. People charge more money to install it. Supply partners have got them in stock. I feel sorry for the guys in Queensland that you have to do it, but it'll probably only be there for a couple of years, and we'll move to the same technology as the rest of the states. After all, they are Queenslanders.
It's worth highlighting that it was Queensland, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, who insisted on DRM being in place on all inverters. Caused the entire global inverter manufacturing sector who wanted to bring inverters into Australia to suddenly have to race to get DRM control in place. Otherwise, they couldn't sell in Queensland. And you know how many inverter manufacturers how many times the DNSPs have actually used DRM control on inverters? Virtually never. Virtually never. They cost
no joke
millions of dollars in R&D and development to get that function in place, and then quietly just ignored it for the last 6 or 7 or whatever, how many years it is. And this is my biggest fear with this is, and you know, we've seen this in South Australia and WA, the number of instances where they're actually having to curtail are very, very minimal. So, you know, that's good news for consumers. But in the meantime, they've got another piece of kit that has to be purchased, installed, maintained, supported, connectivity maintained, so that someone can potentially throw a stupid knife switch because, you know, Angus has got the shits or something. Who knows, mate? It's just, it's unreal.
At the end of the day, the inverter's controlling its output by grid voltage anyway. So I think that these are doing themselves. The inverters are capable of doing it themselves dynamically without any communication to anybody.
Well, that's a really good point. That's one of the things we learned out of South Australia, actually, was, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but, you know, we heard late last year that when SAPN only has a very small number of the total, all the old solar systems, of course, have no control and no approved relevant agent control, let alone dynamic export control, which hasn't quite hit them yet, has none of that enabled down there. So when they decided they really needed to turn all the solar off, they just whipped the voltage up, mate. They just pushed the voltage up on the network until inverters went whoop, 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 whoop.
Knocks out the inverters. Yeah.
Knocks out all the inverters. And, you know, frankly, I'm surprised someone up in Queensland didn't think of that and just go, we don't have to do anything.
But if we're looking at the trends and where the grid is going, last month or currently, the Tesla Model 3 is the most sold sedan at the moment. I think it's the third largest car in Australia after the Hilux and the Ford Ranger. So the EVs
just topped California.
They're going to keep ramping up. Yeah,
just top California. Most popular car being sold in California now.
So rather than shut down all of this stuff with the uptake of the Teslas and EVs, there's a perfect sponge for us, right? We've just got to incentivize people to be taking energy during the day, which the WA government's starting to do. I think it's going to be outdated to have GSD devices because the network's going to need all of that energy as the EVs come.
They are. It's about orchestration, right? It's about intelligent orchestration. We've got the capability of doing it. For goodness sake, you can get on Chat GPT and, you know, get an essay written for you. Surely someone.
Have you had a crack of Chat GPT? It's awesome, man. We were having a bit of a go for some of the marketing stuff, and then I was just throwing some things around solar, and it's very good.
It's excellent. 90% of what it says is right on the money, very accurate, incredibly well written. It's got a good tone to it, and then 10% is absolute garbage. That's about where we've landed. Apparently, I'm the owner of several solar companies. I put myself in the other day, and it said, "Yeah, he's the founder of blah 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 and blah 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 blah," which is absolutely garbage. But
so 10% bullshit is still around a really good marketing person anyway.
it's just a marketing person sitting at the other end going, oh yeah, I got this.
Chat GPT, it knows more than most solar sparkies.
Oof.
That'll create a bit of a
Oh, that's a
stir,
bit harsh. Well, it's a typical day on Solar Cutters. On the Solar Cutters page, you throw out a few curveballs just to keep the masses happy, Karl.
Oh, look, I'm endlessly disappointed that people still think that a 25 amp circuit breaker is okay for a 5 kilowatt inverter, and they're on the Solar Cutters page. I'll stick my hand up. 25 amps for a 5 kilowatt inverter is not a solar cutter. That's someone who wants to cut a corner for no good reason whatsoever.
There you go. There's been a lot of hoo-ha about the same issue appearing, or in fact a slightly different issue appearing on electric vehicle chargers that are being installed left, right and centre. A number in WA, I think, was where the post sort of originated, Luke. But a lot of people sort of discovering electricians slapping EV chargers into people's homes and not appropriately rating the cabling or everything else, because when an EV charger comes on, of course, it does ramp up to 7, 22, whatever it is, kilowatts, and sits there. And so it's a constant load. So it's a big whack and load for some time, and cable size and breaker size is really, really important on those.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening, it's 40 amp breakers. It's 10 mil square cable. Doesn't matter whether it's single or three phase. There's no getting past it. Someone who's got a car with an 11 kilowatt charger today has got a car with a 20 kilowatt charger in 2 or 3 years. We've seen the size of solar inverters shrink to, I won't say a packet of cigarettes, but they're pretty small now in comparison with what a 5,000 CL was back in, 8 or 10 years ago. So the same thing will happen in the cars. An 11 kilowatt charger today will be a 22 kilowatt charger in a couple of years. And of course, batteries will get bigger. We'll get electric F-150s, electric Rivians, that sort of stuff, that have got 120 kilowatt hour or 100 kilowatt hour pack that we want to charge. And we need 22 kilowatt charging. So why would we even consider installing a 22 kilowatt charger with enough cable to barely support 11?
I don't know that I agree with you, Karl. I'm a guest here, and it's the first time I've joined your show, but I don't know whether I agree with you, having gone through the EV ownership thing for a while, because at the end of the day, I don't need a 4-hour charge on my EV, and mine's slightly different because it's a smaller charger. But even if I had a 20, I don't, even if I had a 100 kilowatt hour battery, I don't need a 4-hour charge at home. I'm happy with an 8, 10, 12 hour charge. Home is for topping up. And if you want a fast charge, if you want to boot the crap out of the thing, go to one of the tens of thousands of DC fast charging stations that are opening up left, right and centre. I just saw a report the other day that's saying, New South Wales are leading the way yet again, and has,
you need a bigger solar system, not. So for me, I've got 20 kilowatts on the roof, and if I want to charge my car with solar on it, it's a nice
you want to dump it.
Just put it in the car. It makes absolute sense, rather than imparting my extra volts on the rest of the grid. But if we want to be net zero, we need to have an ability to supply all of our own energy, including in winter, which means 25, 26 kilowatt solar systems. And if it's hours of sunshine that we get in the middle of winter in Melbourne, which is pretty common, and we'll never see anything like 20 kilowatts, of course, but I want to be able to push it into the car as fast as I can during those hours of sun. And of course, if you forgot to charge your car and you come out and it's got very little, or something went wrong with the charger or the connector, you didn't push it in far enough.
Well, you got to race up to the preschool
for half an hour or an hour.
Yep.
Yeah.
That I get. I think we
but
will.
I really do.
I think we will need it in the future. I do agree on that.
We're spoiled at the moment in that the handful of EVs that we got are using between 150 and 200 watt hours per kilometre, and the EVs that are coming, like F-150s and Rivians and so on, they're 3.5 tonne cars, and there's no getting past it. That they're going to use twice as much power, and they're going to need batteries that are twice the size. And of course, diminishing returns, twice the size of the battery, need more power to drive it, need a bigger battery, need more power to drive it. We need a lot of grunt.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Now, gents, it's been really good. There's so much more we can talk about. There's stuff about polysilicon prices spiking and a whole bunch of other things we could get to, but it's almost time to wrap up. And I'm going to give you a really tough question before we do. Can you boil down what your predictions are for the PV battery EV space this year?
Yeah, last year there were less than 20,000 EVs hit the market. My prediction is that this year we'll see more like 100,000 EVs hit the market. There's an amazing amount of Chinese hardware that's hitting the market, and it looks awesome. 400 kilowatt cars for everybody.
Yep. And Nige, what are your predictions, man?
Yeah, I think, notwithstanding floods, fires and pestilence, all of which we've had in the last few years, there's a lot of pent-up demand. And, I've been back on the phones and ringing around all across the industry, talking to all sorts of people, large and small, over the last couple of weeks in particular, to get a vibe from everyone. The sense that I got from the majority of people was that, January was pretty slow. A lot of people took a longer break. Lead flow has been steady. Interest is high. Conversions are really good. People understand that prices are going up and they've got to do something about it. So that's going to drive them towards solar. Batteries, batteries are going to keep being adopted at an increasing rate, subject to the ebb and flow of the economics, of course, which is driven by supply and demand. So I don't expect batteries are going to actually make any massive headway this year, because I don't see supply and demand dropping the price. I think the price will stay where it is. You can go right back into the semiconductor, right back into the raw material end of the industry, and look at the lithium prices and what they're doing, and see that, nothing dramatic is going to change this year on batteries. So the economics are what they are on batteries, but there's a lot of people with older systems who'd love to add a battery, and I think we'll see that start to boom. And of course, we're all getting better and better at selling them as well. So, that'll be healthy. And I'm with Karl. I don't know what the number is, but, I know in my exciting part of the world, there are 7 new models of electric motorcycles that have landed and been ADR, in fact, 8, because the one and only Australian bike, the Savage electric motorcycle, got ADR approved this week as well. So, there's a swag of electric motorcycles ready to hit the market as well. And, just to top it off, I drove down the road today and a Volvo electric vehicle drove past me today, which I'd never seen before.
Awesome.
And I went, there you go.
Yep.
That's a sign.
That's cool. And just to go further from that, the good news for solar companies is that you can get a higher check average. So the battery numbers may or may not change, but as people sell more systems with batteries and up to them, we're looking at going from $1 a watt or sub $1 a watt to potentially double that just by virtue of adding batteries, which is a good thing. I'm actually quite optimistic about the year. The feedback is that January was soft and the data backs that up. But we've backed the right horse. The legislation, the government, the tide is going towards solar, battery, new energies, EVs. And we're in the hot seat. So on the way up, there's some dips along the way. We saw that a lot of last year, but I think ultimately the future's looking bright for what we're doing. So I'm really stoked with that.
I reckon we'll hit 3.5 this year, 3.5 gigawatts. We did 3. This is just the small scale stuff. And someone highlighted to me just the other day, actually, that it's going to be a really, really tough year. We're not going to see volume in the industrial large scale solar farm space, because they're all booked, but they're in construction. They're going to take a year. So there's actually probably not going to be very much that actually hits the ground and gets connected this year. So our capacity contribution from the large scale stuff may well be really, really down this year. So is that
labor materials? What's the hold up?
No, it's just the rolling ups and downs that you have with that long lead time stuff on solar farms. And so there was a ton that was sold, booked, planned. All the stuff's been ordered now, and now they're going through the final next year phase of locking everything down and getting ready to start construction. But that takes a year on these big projects, right? It's a long process. So the lead time on that large scale stuff is much longer. So everyone I'm talking to is saying, yeah, this year's going to be a dog for capacity. There'll be a lot of work, no doubt, but there won't be a lot of capacity that comes online. So in terms of hitting the government's targets, where they're actually incredibly reliant on the small scale and rooftop market in commercial. Commercial's taken off like a bomb, actually. A couple of people I spoke to said commercial is going to be really, really strong this year, hence 3.5 at least.
Yeah, look, Nigel, commercial still makes a hell of a lot of sense to be able to use it on site.
Fantastic.
Not have to ship it anywhere. It is always going to make a lot of sense and economically be easier, faster to deploy.
Now, gents, before we wrap up, we've got a pipeline of great guests coming up. We haven't scheduled anyone. We've just got indication from lots of people. So there should be lots of good things coming up this year now that we're back into it. Nige, you've got something new going on. Do you want to give a quick wrap to that?
Well, yeah, it's, I'm here instead of over on GSB or Solar Insiders. And I guess the long and the short of that is we have more than 500,000 listens on Solar Insiders and probably, getting close to that on GSB. And but it's been 6 years, and it was time to try something new. I've got a couple of things in the pipeline that I think will pan out. So I'll probably launch another new podcast shortly, and a lot of focus on video. Actually, we really want to produce some more video. And I've also, I've always, in case anyone didn't know, I'm kind of into electric motorbikes. So I've also created a dedicated channel and sort of reinvented a brand or reinvigorated a brand that I created 7 or 8 years ago called Moto Electro. So I've got a dedicated channel for the EV stuff on two wheels, which I love passionately. So I'm going to see a lot more stuff from me on that. And, but I still really want to stay connected with the industry. And, to be honest, I really admire what you guys are doing with this podcast. And so maybe if I'm really lucky, you'll have me back once or twice again and we can keep talking crap.
Sounds good. That's right up our alley, mate.
Indeed, always a pleasure working with professionals that are better at doing things than what we are, because we learn stuff, Nigel.
I'll see if I can drag someone in who could fulfill that, Karl.
I'm just waiting for your submissions on a theme song, because that's something we haven't managed to do in the over 12 months we've been going. So
there you go.
Yeah. But no, great to have you on board, Nige, and Karl. Great to be back, mate. I think the holiday was longer than what we planned for, but we're back.
I think Sophie might want you to publish that last episode that we haven't published yet.
Oh, I have to apologise, Sophie. Right, I was busy moving house, going through separation, and one of the conversation pieces that we have in many episodes is about how do you find balance and everything else. And I reached a point where work was very busy and there was a lot going on in my life, and I was still straight and level, but unfortunately one of the things that I had to park for a while was the podcast. So
there's not enough bandwidth, not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, but it was an excellent episode we've got in the can with Sophie Wright, and we will be publishing it. So sorry, Soph, it's coming. A great conversation. That'll be coming soon as well. Thanks, gentlemen. Great chat. Look forward to doing it again in a couple of weeks.
Awesome, Luke. Thanks for hosting, even though you're on holiday.
Yeah, good on you.
Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, share around to anyone who might get benefit. Thanks again.